Welcome back, Gothamites, to the finale of Gotham TV podcast, I guess. After the finale of Gotham, The Beginning, the final episode of Season 5 of Gotham. And we're here to talk about our top 3 WTF moments of this episode. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hi, I'm one of your other hosts, John. Yes, welcome, fellow Gothamites and fellow detectives. What a journey this has been. Of course, not only is this the end, but it is the beginning as well, with Batman arriving on the scene. So yes, really great stuff here in this final episode. Episode 12 of Season 5, The Beginning.
I wondered if it was a reference to the Smashing Pumpkins song that was in the Batman and Robin movie, The End is the Beginning is the End, which is, I wonder if that's a little reference to that. It's also obviously a reference to the fact that the first episode of the series had the whole concept of this is the beginning of Batman, and now 5 seasons later we're at the beginning of Batman. We have the first appearance of Batman in the show, so very cool.
It's a great little kind of mini-series feel to this final episode where it covers a lot in quite a short amount of ground. But remember, our full discussion will be over on Gotham TV Podcast for the final review of Gotham Season 5, Episode 12. And, of course, it will also be over on our new podcast platform, TV Podcast Industry. So please check that out because, of course, not only will you find our back catalogue of Gotham TV podcasts, we will also be covering Pennyworth later on in this year, as well as getting into Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman.
That's it.
Almost forgot. Yes.
Almost. Yes, the second trailer for Pennyworth came out this week. It's announcement of the date for release. It's the 28th of July, so we will be covering that during the summer, which is perfect. 10 episodes of that coming up. Subscribe over TV Podcast Industries. We'll probably put the episode on Gotham TV Podcast, so in case you've forgotten to subscribe, you can get it on there. But yes, this is our final top 3 WTF moments. We will put out the full podcast, as John said, so please let us know your thoughts about this episode. We want to hear as much as possible before we do that last episode. You can email us at feedback@Gotham TV Podcast, or just put the comments in the post here on YouTube. John, what's our number 1 of our WTF moments?
It's 10 years later. We had, a year before at the start, and now we have 10 years later. We see it's not really gone that well for Oswald and Edward. They are coming out of various different institutions across Gotham. Ed has been in Arkham with a vegetative Jeremiah, and then there's also been Oswald in Blackgate as well. So yes, not so well for the two masters of crime whose final pitch in episode 11 was that they will be, kings and masters of Gotham. Yeah,
absolutely. And I'm not too sure, this is probably why it's a WTF moment, I'm not too sure why this has happened, because they say 6 months after the end of that battle, Jim locks both of them up as Commissioner Gordon. He locks both of them into their various places. So it's one of those ones which is now an untold story of Gotham, because we've never really had this kind of huge time jump before. We've not had the 10-year time jump. So something happened, but I know some people are quite angry even when the trailer was released. They were going, hang on a second, didn't Penguin and Ed save the city of Gotham? And this is the treatment they get? They go back into prison? But look, it showed us some wonderful locations. One of the things I think about this season of the show is that it's been going back over a lot of things we've seen over 5 years. And it really feels like they rolled out a lot of the locations that we've used. We see Arkham Asylum for the first time in quite a while now, since the big breakout, I think. So
I think as well, Jim really, yes, he was very much grateful probably for their help, but you really got the sense from Jim Gordon, certainly in his interaction with the Penguin, that he didn't trust them. He wasn't buying any of their old friends' stuff, and actually, I think on becoming commissioner, probably led the manhunt that put them away in the different prisons. So, but speaking of Jim, we get the moustache. We get that slug on his top lip.
For a while.
Or a furry caterpillar, I should say, on his top lip. So just for a bit, he shaves it off in the end, but no doubt, like Batman, he'll be back.
He'll be back. He's now tried it. He's seen if it works for him. Maybe he just needs to get a little bit older. This interesting thing about the 10 years later is he's effectively about to retire. We saw the start of Jim Gordon at the beginning of season 5, him being a young rookie cop arriving in the city after being in the army. So he's supposed to be about, 27, 28 kind of age.
Yeah.
this is supposed to be 15 years on, so he's taking really early retirement, if that's the case.
Yeah.
So
he's done a lot in his 15 years.
Very true. Sure. It is Gotham, so...
Yeah, and of course the other big thing here from 10 years later was Selena Kyle, slightly morphed here because Cameron Beacon-Dover didn't come back. We mentioned this on our last podcast, but certainly we have a spirit of Cameron Beacon-Dover reincarnated for this final episode. It's a shame we didn't get her. I think, she's been such a presence from when she donned her little cat hat and did a dance after getting the part through to all 5 seasons. So it was a shame we didn't get her, but I do think her spirit really was brought through, And
just an interesting one, if you haven't gone back and seen the pilot, Selena Kyle is the first character we see in the pilot episode. She's the first character arriving on the show. So it's sad she didn't make it into the end. I know there's been a lot of talk about this final episode in the run-up to it, and we now know, effectively, David Mazouz also didn't really appear on screen either. So a lot of people were kind of saying, well, why does David get the opportunity to be in the episode and she doesn't? Well, he doesn't. He gets the opportunity at the beginning of the episode to reenact that moment from Batman Begins as he arrives on the shores of where he's going to be training. Looked a little bit like Camartage, John, from Doctor Strange.
It really did.
But he's arriving there to train. That's David Mazouz. We see a little bit of his chin is used when we see Batman face on later on. But the moments with Selena Kyle where she's in her dress, you couldn't possibly do that with Cameron Beacon-Dover. You couldn't have aged her up that 10 years. She's just not that age appropriate, I suppose. So it's an interesting decision to have made. We talked about it on the podcast. You can hear our thoughts over there on that.
Yeah, and of course, Barbara Keane is a successful property developer. But with that, on to point number 2, Mr. J arrives. We thought he had gone. No, of course he's not. Jeremiah, or dare we say Mr. J, is very much here, but looking very out of sorts in a vegetative state in Arkham. We see, pencils being stabbed into his legs. Do nothing to wake him. Just a slight bit of dribble coming from his mouth. But he's still there and alive. And he has his faithful nurse with Echo, who arrives and then dies. But in the Star Wars fashion, from the lips of Mr. J, there will be another.
There will be another.
And there certainly will. And we know who it will be in that sense. But yes, Echo unfortunately perishes. She gets wounded, and Mr. J basically finishes her off. But it was a nice, crazy end to Echo as well, as Mr. J puts in his plans to shock everyone. I mean, you see Harvey Bullock really shocked when he's makes a call on an escape from Arkham Asylum. It's actually Ed Nigma, and the police cop or the prison guard shoots himself, and Harvey Bullock is then left listening to someone on the other end of the phone. Who may that be? It's Mr. J.
Yeah, exactly. And again, unfortunately, despite all the speculation, we do not hear the name Joker in here. We hear him say, "What should you call me? I don't feel like Jeremiah fits me anymore. What should you call me? J. And then he tells a joke. So
John, he does say John. It
could have been
just
you,
saying.
John. Could have been you. Yes, but interesting, and we talked about back in season 1, we talked about Penguin with his long game of the game he was playing with the Falcone family and getting to the top of being king of Gotham. This is a long game. This is Mr. J playing the game that he's been in a coma effectively for 10 years, in a vegetative state in Arkham Asylum for 10 years. That's a long game if you want to get your hands on Batman again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting one in here, though. He does know that the identity of Batman, or the identity of the person he's going after, is Bruce Wayne. That's who he's waiting for to come back. That's who he's waiting to blow up. Our big shocking moment, our final big shocking moment, really, is Batman is in the episode, right?
Yeah, Batman arrives. This has, the episode has this dark, sort of menacing, ghostly figure throughout this episode. Mr. J is at Ace Chemicals with Barbara Lee Gordon, dangling her over the vat of green sludge, and brings Gordon, but ultimately Gordon is saved and is able to save his daughter from batarangs being flied at Mr. J. So yes, we have this sense of a presence. It's all about this sense, which I think this episode does really well for Gotham. We have Alfred saying that Bruce Wayne is back. Bruce Wayne gives his apologies. He's been busy, and then we have this dark figure. I mean, there is a really nice one in Ace Chemicals, I think it is, where Jim Gordon, you just get the shadow zooming across the foreground, the background, the side of the camera, and Gordon really wondering what's going on there. Is it friend? Is it foe? So it is that nice introduction of the Batman, mysterious, slightly off shot, but an ever presence in people's minds, I think, as much as the actual TV episode.
Yeah, definitely. And I do like that it ends off the episode with the kind of creation of the bat signal. We have the light shining into the sky as Batman arrives, and as Jim Gordon says to everybody around him, he is a friend, he is with us. So
yeah, there's a great the stud around the bat signal, and there's that great sort of long shot where you see him sort of jumping and gliding between two skyscrapers as well. Harvey's mouth hits the ground, really nicely done, I think. And as you say, a great closing scene where the camera pans up to that sort of the skyscraper rocky outcrop like you got in Batman Begins, and all the, I think, Dark Knight trilogy.
Absolutely.
You see, you certainly recognise David Mazouz's chin.
Of David.
Yeah,
and you hear his voice as well throughout the episode, which is really cool. So glad he got the opportunity to do that. So glad we've had the opportunity to watch 5 seasons of this season of Gotham.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough to say goodbye.
It is.
We will do that on our podcast. We'll say goodbye to you on YouTube now. Thanks so much for joining us. We will be back on our podcast over on Gotham TV Podcast or on TV Podcast Industries. If you haven't subscribed yet, you might as well do it on TV Podcast Industries to get all of our podcasts and all of our content and all of our reviews. We're going to be talking about Avengers Endgame, the other big goodbye this week, I suppose. We're talking about that later on this week as well. So go watch that and listen to the podcast about that.
Yeah, goodbye, fellow Gothamites. It has been an emotional journey over these 5 seasons of
Certainly
Gotham.
Has.
Dare I say it to quote from another property: live long and prosper. Bye.
Bye.